Governors and governor-elect are undergoing an induction program in Abuja on ways to govern in a different manner and a more challenging atmosphere. We speak with one of them tonight. And the United States today announced a visa restriction for those whom they say have undermined the 2023 elections in Nigeria. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the program. I'm Seun in Abuja. Tonight, we begin the program with a story of resilience, passion, and determination. A story that has united Nigerians across party lines, ethnic and religious lines. A story of a record breaker and a story of someone who dares to dream. It is the story of Hilda Bassi, a chef who today broke the world record for the longest cooking time by an individual. For the past days, Hilda has been cooking different meals to beat the record, and she has received a lot of support and encouragement from Nigerians, some of whom had visited the venue of the cookathon in Lagos to cheer her on and, in fact, taste of some of the meals she has cooked in the space of time. Meanwhile, politicians have been pouring the encomiums on Hilda, some of whom include the President-elect Bola Tinubu, former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, and Labour Party Presidential candidate Peter Obi. Governors of Lagos and Akwa Ibom have equally shown their support in what some of them describe as a can-do spirit of Hilda, which has inspired a lot of Nigeria. Hilda has indeed inspired many Nigerians and shown us that we can achieve whatever we can if we just dream it and go ahead to do it. Hilda was planning to beat that record of about 87 hours. She moved it up to 90 hours, and we understand that she wants to get it up to 100 hours. More strength, energy, and success to you, Hilda. Well, tonight our attention is on two major issues. The United States have come out to say they have imposed visa restrictions to some Nigerians whom they say they have undermined the 2023 elections. We'll be dissecting these issues for you. Anthony Blinken, the U.S. Secretary of State, has released a statement, which you can see right there on the screen. We'll be getting more details on that. Plus, governors and governor-elect are in Abuja undergoing a week-long induction program. What is this about? Should we be expecting some difference in the manner in which these governors will attempt at governing in their different state? That also get our attention. Sticking around with me, everyone. But first and foremost, let's bring you up to speed with some of your top political stories.
The Inspector General of Police, Usman Alkali Baba, has read the Riot Act to political actors as well as their collaborators and anyone plotting to disrupt the presidential inauguration ceremony slated for May 29 to stop heating up the polity. Addressing a news conference in Abuja, Mr. Baba says some major political actors who are not happy with the outcome of the just concluded elections are issuing public threats that are directed at instigating actions to frustrate the May 29 inauguration ceremony. An Abuja High Court, presided over by Justice Ian Ekwo, has fixed the 18th of May 2023 to hear the suit filed by 5 residents of the Federal Capital Territory seeking to stop the inauguration of Senator Bola Tinubu as the next president of Nigeria. At the resumed hearing of the suit, Justice Ekwo adjourned the matter to the 18th of May to enable the counsel to the plaintiffs address the court on the issue of local standing, jurisdiction, and whether the matter is not already before the Presidential Election Petition Court. The plaintiffs approached the Federal High Court in Abuja on April 28, 2023, claiming that Senator Tinubu failed to secure at least 25% of votes cast in the FCT and cannot be sworn in on that account.
So the learned judge said that we need to satisfy him on some issues before he would rule whether to make the reference or not.
Chairman of the Sokoto State Election Petition Tribunal, Justice Josephine Onyefoso, has assured the council and litigants in the election disputes of fair hearing and speedy determination of all matters before it. Speaking during the inaugural sitting of the panel of the National and State Houses of Assembly Election Tribunal at the Sokoto State High Court Complex, Justice Oyefoso says all pre-hearing sessions will commence as soon as all preliminary matters in each petition have been dealt with. The three-man panel of the Ogun State governorship election petition, headed by Justice Hamidu Kunaza, has dismissed two petitions brought before the tribunal by the Ogun State chapters of the New Nigeria People's Party and the Action People's Party following filing for same by the parties. Giving his ruling on the application for the withdrawal of the petitions, the tribunal chairman, Justice Kunaza, said the petitions were dismissed for lacking merit. The two parties have separately approached the Election Petition Tribunal sitting in Nisabo in Abeokuta, the state capital, for discontinuation of the withdrawal of the petitions. In a similar manner, the tribunal also dismissed attempts by the national leadership of the Nigeria People's Party through its legal advisor for a change of counsel representing the party at the Governorship Election Petition Tribunal. The president of the Nigeria Bar Association, Mr. Yakubu Mikel, says the legal body is committed to restore, reposition, and transform Nigeria. Mr. Mikel was speaking during the unveiling of the 64th Nigeria Bar Association Annual General Conference in Abuja. Speaking on the theme of the conference, Getting It Right, the NBA chairman said the theme was chosen to address lapses being experienced in the country, while noting that it is the responsibility of the legal profession to correct the wrongs in the society.
There is something we are not doing right, and that is why the Nigerian Bar Association must take the lead for Nigeria to get it right.
The Yobe State Deputy Governor Idu Gubana says the existing cordial relationship between him and his principal, Governor Mai Malabuni, has resulted in infrastructural transformation in the state. Addressing journalists ahead of the May 29 inauguration ceremony in Damaturu, Mr. Gubana notes that the state government is committed in embarking on more developmental projects that will have direct impact on the lives of the ordinary citizens. At the head of the inauguration of the president-elect, Senator Bola Tinubu, a former Speaker of the Zamfara State House of Assembly and Director of Artisans and Technicians in the defunct APC Presidential Campaign Council, Mr. Sanusi Rikiji, is advocating the need for the overhauling of some federal government agencies. Addressing a news conference in Abuja, Mr. Rikiji says there is a need for the incoming administration to pursue the economic revitalization of Nigeria through a deliberate overhaul of some federal government agencies. As the National Youth Service Corps, NYSC, celebrates 50 years of the scheme, a former chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, Professor Atahiru Jega, is asking for a repositioning of the compulsory national service for a better delivery. Professor Jega was speaking at the event to mark the 5th decade of running the scheme.
Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us on the program. In Abuja today, the 2023 induction for re-elected and newly elected governors is ongoing, and the event has attracted dignitaries from different walks of life. They have all converged on the banquet hall of the presidential villa in Abuja. It is an occasion that brings both the outgoing, re-elected and newly elected governors together to speak on the task that are ahead of these state executives. The president of the World Trade Organization, WTO, Mrs. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, is asking state governors to seek alternative revenue sources by diversifying their economy and building trust such that will encourage interstate investments that will shore up state revenue base. Mrs. Okonjo-Iweala was one of the guest speakers at the induction ceremony for the newly elected and re-elected governors organized by the Nigeria Governors Forum in Abuja. Take a listen to herself and Ms. Amina Mohammed.
We need to start preparing now for a time when our oil and gas may no longer serve us as the main sources of revenue. States with a heavy dependence on FAC allocations will be particularly hit. It is important that you, governors, start now to diversify your revenue sources. Honorable governors, let us be candid. Trust in Nigeria has always been fragile, but following the election, a lot of trust has been broken. Excellencies, you have a lot of healing to do within your states and between them.
You will need trusted partnerships. Partnerships with central government, with the private sector, with civil society, academia, and with international financial institutions, and indeed with the United Nations, of which you are a big part. Our resident coordinators and our UN country teams are here in Nigeria at your service, but also across borders in the continent, with new sustainable development cooperation frameworks that underscore the priority of government. This is the bedrock of our collaboration in the shared pursuit of the SDGs, but also of the African Union's 2063 agenda.
Meanwhile, the Chief of Staff to President Buhari, Professor Ibrahim Gambari, he's one of those who spoke at the event. Also, the governor, he was urging the governors to deliver on their campaign promises around the risk of being voted out of office in 2027. He spoke alongside Governor Tambuwal, amongst several other speakers, at the banquet hall of the presidential villa. Take a listen to both men.
I'm happy to note that democracy is alive and well, vibrant and thriving in Nigeria. With the elections now over, it is time for us, all of us, to deliver the promises we made during the campaign. One significant development that we all saw from the last election is that the electorate is maturing and people are increasingly finding their voices. Any public officer who fails to either meet up with the expectations of the people or deliver on his campaign promises will be voted out in the next election.
Unemployment, poverty, and insecurity are difficult tasks incumbent administrations are expected to face in their respective states. Building strong, viable institutions and the polity will help in tackling unemployment, reducing poverty, and ensuring the provision of security of lives and property. This is a worthy legacy to be bequeathed to our children and generations to come. Borrowing to finance socio-economic challenges is not a reliable alternative. This is the position of the National Economic Council, chaired by the Vice President, with the governors as members. Subnational governments should work hard to multiply revenue generation bases to generate more revenues for the betterment of the people.
Professor Gambari and Governor Aminu Tambuwal at the induction program tonight. We're hoping to connect with one of the governors at the induction program, which is still ongoing as we speak. Well, let's turn our attention now to what the United States has said in respect of Nigerian elections. So the United States is taking steps to impose visa restrictions on specific individuals in Nigeria for undermining the democratic process during the just concluded 2023 general elections. In a statement by the U.S. Secretary of State, Mr. Antony Blinken, he said that, quote, the United States is committed to supporting and advancing democracy in Nigeria and around the world. Today, I'm announcing that we have taken steps to impose visa restrictions on specific individuals in Nigeria for undermining the democratic process during the Nigeria's 2023 election cycle, end of quote. Well, those words are filled with a lot of issues and a lot of implications, of course. America's intervention on our elections. Who are these people? It wasn't clearly stated in that statement released by the U.S. Secretary of State. But then, let's get some perspectives into this matter. The decision of the United States, what it means on our electoral process. This is not the first time we've seen this happen. I'm being joined tonight on the program on this matter. Hamza Lawal, who is one of those, the leaders of one of the organizations who deployed hundreds of people on the field to observe the election. During the election, Hamza Lawal is a chief executive of Connected Development. He joins me live from London virtually. Thank you so much, Hamza, for joining us tonight. Does this come to you as a surprise, the decision of the United States to take, it does look like a promise being made and promise kept, that they will place a restriction of visa restriction on Nigerians who undermine the electoral process, and now they have announced that they have done that. Does this come to you as a surprise?
And no, it doesn't, and thank you for having me, Seun. The U.S. government, before the election, had said that they're monitoring our elections closely, and they would not relent in putting a ban and holding people to account who try to interfere in Nigeria's democracy. And today, the Secretary of State have made this announcement. The next for me, is what should have come with this announcement is the names of these people who they've placed under the visa ban. Because, we cannot run the country without consequence. Before, during, and after the elections, we saw people peddling fake news. We saw people interfering with the independent work of INEC. We saw people colluding with security agencies. We saw politicians empowering thugs and miscreants to and hoodlums, to disrupt the elections. I'm really glad that the American government have taken this bold first step in placing a visa ban. I want to urge the United Kingdom government and our partners under the European Union to also follow suit. These people cannot cause mayhem and instability in Nigeria and go and find safe havens in America or other parts of the world when they cannot guarantee and ensure peace and prosperity. So this is really commendable, and America has shown that truly she's a friend to Nigeria and she's willing and committed to supporting Nigeria's democracy as we evolve.
So there are likely the possibility of speculations on who these personalities are and to what extent their roles and how far is the United States investigation, what evidence do they have to impose this kind of ban? And you had suggested that they should name names. What consequence would it be if they had named names? They don't have a history of naming names for those who they play visa ban on.
I think that it also goes further to be more transparent in this process, but also send a signal that there are consequences to action. If they had named this name, then Nigerian people can actually also know that even if our government and some institutions are not acting, the international community are watching and they have acted, particularly the American government. I think it would have gone a long way. Yes, I can understand that judicial process is ongoing and maybe they're not publishing this name so they don't interfere with that process. But I think that they owe it to the Nigerian people who are their friends and partners. Because what we have even taught is some of these people who interfered in our election process should have been prosecuted or even brought behind bars by the Nigerian police, which is the apex law enforcement agency. I want to also believe that these people who have been placed under a visa ban by the American government should not only be politicians. We saw private citizens. We saw former lawmakers. We saw even law enforcement agencies that are saddled with the responsibility to ensure peace and stability in the country who colluded with corrupt politicians and mischief makers. But again, this is a right step, and this is one step that would lead to other steps by the American government, I believe. But I think in due time, they should publish these names, and we should know, so that as civil society, what we would now do is inaugurate them in the hall of shame.
So, there are a lot of consequences, I assume. But what, perhaps, because I would like to come to what America could also do if they have evidence that these people really undermine the electoral process and they justifiably so, and they have reasons to punish them for this, for not allowing them to enter their country. But what would a visa restriction be on some of these persons? They don't enter into America, so what? What are the implications? And, what can we learn from the decision of America?
Well, we know that some of these countries in the past have played a role of safe havens for these politicians. We know these politicians like to go to America to access healthcare. We know that their families and cronies are there. Some of them, their kids also school in America and their family members live and have investment in America. We also know some of these politicians actually invest heavily in that economy. So I think this goes a long way in denying them access to quality lifestyle, denying them access to healthcare. Maybe in the future, they might also want to add people that are connected to these politicians. Then there will be pressure from their family members to ensure that they do the right thing and not interfere with their democracy. But it actually goes a long way when you want to access freedom of movement or even access to the world power, and then you're denied that access. And that's why I'm also calling on the United Kingdom government and also the European Union government. Let us deny them that safe haven so that they can ensure that, we have peace and prosperity and no one trample upon our democracy that is emerging so that we can enjoy peace and prosperity. And then we can ensure that the Nigerian people enjoy the dividends of democracy. So everyone should stay in their home and let them invest in their homes and in the country so that the Nigerian people can benefit, and then we can have quality lifestyle, quality healthcare, education, and don't give them that leverage or that privilege to enjoy, good healthcare and other social amenities beyond the country that they've caused instability.
So, let's look at it in a broader sense. Anybody who undermines our democracy should be brought to book, isn't it, Amzad? And they should be punished duly under our laws. And I'm assuming that if America has any information or evidence against some of these persons, shouldn't they be working with the Nigerian authority to really bring these persons to book other than these visa restrictions?
Well, I know that the American government and the Nigerian government have diplomatic channels in which they communicate. I want to believe that the Minister of Foreign Affairs would have reached out to the Nigerian mission in New York or in DC to get the Department of State to provide these names of the people and open that diplomatic channels to get information about the role of these people, the evidence that the American government have gathered, and how they can work with the Nigerian authority, particularly the law enforcement agencies, and then prosecute them under the Nigerian laws. I want to believe that these channels are open, and the Nigerian government must leverage on this channel if they want to show commitment towards Nigeria's prosperity, stability, and democratic deepening.
So what lesson do you think we can take away from this posture of the United States?
I think the lessons we can take away from it is what are our values? Because today the American people and government are showing us that their values and their consequence to actions and inactions, and how this also impacts our democracy. I think the lessons here is, as Nigerian people, as Nigerian state, what is our values? Are we running a country without consequence? Are we saying that everything go? Are we saying that we're not governed by the rule of law? Are we saying that people, individuals are more stronger than institutions? So the lesson here is, as a people, we need to reflect and think and not allow external parties or our friends in the international communities take action before us. We must seize the moment, seize the opportunity, own our democracy, and take those actions. And those actions must come with consequences. And our government must rise to the occasion. I think these are some of the lessons. And as citizens, we must continue to strive in the face of advice. We must continue to strive. We must hold strong to our values and ensure that Nigeria, each and every one of us, play our role in nation building.
There has been this back and forth between the police, INEC, at some point where INEC would say, we don't have the power to prosecute. And the police will say it is incumbent on INEC to take action when there is an election offender. And it comes to one thing, that the Electoral Offences Commission has been proposed severally, and those, people who have brought up this idea to say we need an Electoral Offences Commission to be able to prosecute electoral offences in Nigeria. That is not seeing the light of day. The present National Assembly has been working on that, and I've had a series of conversations on this program to that effect, asking those who are in charge, the lawmakers, on the need and how the status of that bill, which I'm not sure President Buhari has just a few days left in office, and I'm not sure that bill is on his table just yet. That means we are on a longer ride in prosecuting those who are responsible in undermining our election. And those who are arguing that, look, already there are sufficient positions of the law in our electoral law to punish electoral offenders. What's your take for someone also who will monitor this process, and what are your views on the atmosphere within to punish those who rig elections in Nigeria or undermine our democracy?
I think the 2023 general election have provided us an opportunity to test the 2022 Electoral Act signed by Mr. President, and as stakeholders will identify holes and gaps that would work closely with the 10th National Assembly to close. But Seun, I'm also against the Electoral Offences Commission. You see, we're currently running a recurrent expenditure where even some MDs or government agencies cannot pay salary. We have so many MDs, and a lot of them are duplicating efforts of each other's. So I think that the Nigerian police, which is the apex law enforcement agency, if they're empowered, give it the needed resources and the manpower, I believe that they can rise to the occasion. But I also think that is INEC truly independent? And, let's not provide lip service and because they have independence in their name. I think we need an independent INEC that politicians and elected officials, even the president cannot interfere with the mandate of INEC, where they have their first-line charge resources and they're able to access these resources in good time. And I think when we amend the Electoral Act of 2022, maybe we can empower INEC to go a step further, working closely with the Nigerian police, so that people who are caught wanting on electoral offenses can be prosecuted in no time. And maybe when we put the time limit, so that when INEC gather evidence and work with the Nigerian police, we can get justice in due time and put these people behind bars. Because if we achieve this, then we'll see decline in electoral-related offenses. We'll see decline in violence during election and even interference by mischief makers and corrupt politicians.
I mean, not only that people stuff ballot boxes, snatch ballot boxes, they write result and rewrite result, change the result, delay the process of election. There were some tactical ways of undermining the electoral process, some new ways we saw emerge in our electoral process in the last election, which are, for a long time, it will challenge the relationships between Nigerians. A lot of people have been badly divided along religious and ethnic lines. Politics has really dented people's relationships. And I've seen in a very terrible way how Nigerians could react and act towards themselves just in the name of politics. It's brought out the worst of us this election. I mean, these are other dimensions which maybe the Americans that are looking at imposing visa restriction may not envisage. These are new methods. These are new ways by which people have suffered the others and trampled upon the rights of others. What are your perspectives on some of these that have emerged, perhaps that we did not imagine that will crop up during our elections?
Seun, as humans, we will continue to evolve and people continue to find holes and gaps and leverage on religion and ethnicity to try to divide us. But I think that from some of the lessons, as a country, we need to move forward, and we need to move forward quickly. I think we should take a leave from Plateau State, where they have a National Forgiveness Day, and where they talk about issues that have divided them and forgive people and take lessons from that. You see, Seun, I also traveled a few weeks ago to Rwanda, Kigali. This is a country that they have the same culture, they speak the same language and look like the same. But, within 100 days, over 1,000 people were killed, because of ethnicity and that difference amongst themselves. But when you look at this deeply, it's also about economic empowerment. You see, when people have jobs and they're busy, they would not find themselves as tools to be used against the state or against, opposition. So I think really we need to reflect, find a way to move forward and forgive ourselves. But I think closely we need to now see the importance of religious and traditional institutions, how we can also sensitize people and make them understand that, election itself, it's a process. The debate, it's a process. The campaign is a process. It is not the end result, as citizens, and each and every one of us have a role to play. We've come forward past this 2023 election. For me, I want to believe that the president-elect, once sworn into office, can rally around people and firstly the campaign around reconciliation and peace, because I think that he, even if he doesn't have popular votes, but he has the highest votes and has the mandate of the popularity vote. So I think he needs to lead that campaign of national unity and reconciliation. I want to believe that he would even reach out to his opposition and see how he can have a government of national unity and work with people who don't even believe in the same ideologies as his. You see, Nigeria cannot afford to remain stagnant. We need to move forward. The world has left us behind, and we need to catch up and even, move past some of these world countries that we were even doing better than. So for me, I don't want to dwell on religion and ethnicity. I want to believe that Nigerians, we've learned our lessons and we need to grow from those lessons and deepen our democracy. Our democracy is very young and we're still evolving. But we must learn lessons from countries like Rwanda. We must take lessons from other countries who have made the same mistake, but not repeat this mistake. But rather, let peace reign. Let's shelve our swords and let's reconcile. Besides, first is our country, and this country has binded us. And let's look out for the things that unite us more than the things that have divided us. But our leaders must come together. Civil society, as media, traditional religious institution, and political society. Let us work together and truly make this country great.
So with me, Amza, we are due for a break, everyone. When we come back, we will get the opportunity to speak with one of the governors at the induction program, what it means to our democracy, to governors in states of the Federation, the implication of the U.S. visa restriction on those who have undermined our electoral process. Stay around with me, everyone. We'll be right back. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us. We're reporting to you earlier that governors, the ones who got re-elected and the governors who will be getting into office newly have all converged on the banquet hall of the presidential villa in Abuja, where they're undergoing an induction program. There's been several speakers, and they're looking at ways to change the perspectives in governors in Nigeria. We've had a few, some comments from some of those who spoke, the likes of Mrs. Okonjo-Iweala, the chair of the WTO, and Ms. Amina Mohammed, who is the boss in the United Nations, and of course, we've had the Chief of Staff to the President, Professor Ibrahim Gambari, and Mr. Aminu Tambuwa, Governor of Sokoto State. The idea is to bring together heads and private sector people to speak and share ideas on how to move the different federating units forward. We'll be speaking with one of the governors who is in that event, which I understand that just finished or just still on the way. Will be joining us in just a moment. But we also have taken it upon ourselves to dissect what it means, the implications of the United States move to impose visa restrictions on some Nigerians, which that country says undermine the democracy of Nigeria in the wake of the 2023 elections. And this is the statement from Mr. Anthony Blinken, who says today, the United States is committed to supporting and advancing democracy in Nigeria and around the world. Today, I'm announcing that we have taken steps to impose visa restrictions on specific individuals in Nigeria for undermining the democratic process during Nigeria's 2023 election cycle, end of quote. As the U.S. Secretary of State, the Americans have said it before now, and they said they will do it should anyone, this was before the election, and now they have made true to their promise. Hamza Lawal, who is Chief Executive of Connected Development, has been speaking with us from London on this matter. Perhaps in a way to wrap up on this issue, Hamza, what would be the biggest lesson for us as a people when we have a nation like the United States make this kind of intervention into our democratic process?
I think the biggest lesson here is how the world perceives us and how we as Nigerians can start changing the narrative. Yes, a couple of young people out there are doing very well. You see, the first thing people know about you is your country. You know, we all have one passport. So yes, young people are striving to change this narrative, but it also goes a long way. And, you know, politics sets the tone. So I believe our biggest lessons as actors, whether civil society, media society, political society, and the public, is to first put Nigeria first before anything else. Because if we do that, then that shows patriotism, and that also shows that we're playing our role in nation building. This would also impact how we fight insecurity in the country, because we know that we procure some of our weapons from these world leaders. So again, the perception around how they take us, or how they even how they see us, and most importantly, how they're able to now respect us and say, we're a country who is committed to democracy, have values, and ensuring that truly the Nigerian people have the powers to decide who governs and lead them into prosperity.
I mean, something just comes to my head right now, and I'm imagining that this visa ban, assuming that there is anyone who is elected into office that that is fingered in these infractions, or that has been fingered by the United States in these undermining of our democracy, as the United States tagged it. What does this mean anyways? I mean, if America is to have a relationship with such persons on behalf of Nigeria?
I think that's why it's important that the American government publish this name, so that we would not put ourselves in more jeopardy in putting people in committees, or even appointing people that already have a bad record with how they interfered in our democracy and being put on this ban by the American government. Yes, we know that if some persons get government appointment into office, they're most likely to get an official passport, or in some cases also a diplomatic passport. But the American government, as a sovereign nation, also have the powers to deny them entry into their country or into their territory. Same way the Nigerian government, as a sovereign nation, also have powers and right to deny people into their own sovereign territories.
Let me take you to what is happening here in Abuja with the governor's induction. You have initiated and followed through with Follow the Money, an initiative to track funds and expenditures of public office holders and public offices in Nigeria. What do you make of this induction process? I mean, more or less like a talk shop. For some people who have criticized it, but in your own view, how would you describe and how would you assess these, and what are your expectations?
Well, Seun, there must always be an induction. It's just like an onboarding when you're hired, as a new employee. The National Assembly has been undertaking an onboarding or an induction, and the governors will not be left out. Even when the president-elect is sworn into office, his ministers would also be inducted. But I also think that it's important as a country that we take stock on the past 8 years and the roles of these outgoing governors, and also take stock as civil society of the promises made by the incoming governors, because that would also set a basis to engage them. But most importantly, when they start budgeting and proposing this budget appropriation to the State Assembly, how we're engaging this arm of government and ensuring that their promises are where these monies are going to go to. And most importantly, when they disburse, they're going to ensure these monies are used judiciously. But, Seun, I'm really worried. I'm worried because, you see, when you look at the World Bank Development report that they always release every quarter, one issue that will shine away from is the issue of fuel subsidy. I remember during a dialogue with Malam Nasir El-Rufai and Professor Charles Soludo, they all say that very soon they will not be able to pay salaries. There are some states that can only even afford to pay percentage salaries because there are dwindling resources from non-oil revenue. And we also know that, yes, the oil price in the international market, crude oil price is not doing well. We're subsidizing crude oil or PMS, petroleum pump price. We're subsidizing. And if we continue to subsidize, yes, if you look at the 2023 budget, it says by the end of June or so, we're going to stop subsidizing. And if we truly want to implement the Petroleum Industry Act, we must subsidize. I believe, we're going to make significant savings from subsidy. If we remove subsidy by June ending, before the end of this year, we are likely to make over 2 to 3 trillion naira savings. And when you look at it, let's look at even data around which state consumes, PMS. if you look at data, it is the border states. And what this also tell you is your border countries, what is the average price of PMS in these countries? It is only Nigeria who is in the middle that's subsidized. So that's why people will continue to steal and smuggle fuels that are cheap, that have been subsidized in Nigeria, and go and make 3 or 4 times profit around our borders or countries that we bother with. So I think these governors need to also look beyond, this sharing of feeding bottle federation where they just send their commissioners for finance to come and share money. There's no money to share this time. What it means that every state have to be viable. They have to ensure that they are viable. They're not only viable by raising, domestic bonds or domestic resources, but they are also able to export goods and services that would earn us forex. Because right now, our reserves have been depleted. We're subsidizing, and we're just a consuming nation. We need to become more innovative and produce. There are countries who their production is services. They're good with services. Nigeria have mass farmland, and we have mass natural resources. So we need these executive governors. Yes, no, it's not a talk shop show. As governors, they also need to network. Right. We're dealing with insecurity. So this governor some of these states share borders, and they need to work together effectively to ensure that we're able to curtail insecurity and provide dividends of democracy to the Nigerian people.
Hamzat Lawal is the Chief Executive of Connected Development, has been speaking with us virtually from London. Thank you so much, Hamza, for your time tonight.
Well, thank you for having me. Have a good evening.
Now, it's been a long day for some of the governor-elects and the returning governors who are being undergoing, I understand it's going to be about a 5-day-long induction program. I'm now being joined by one of the governor-elects who are participating in that induction program, the governor-elect of Katsina State, Mr. Dikko Rada. Thank you so much, Your Excellency, for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
I know it's been a long day,
It is really a very long day, and I'm just coming from there directly.
Thank you so much that you are able to join us. But how does this, you've been in the private sector, isn't it? I mean, you have been outside, coming to be a governor. This induction program for you, how does it feel? What is the atmosphere like? The kind of speakers that you have listened to today, what does it mean?
I think it is a very, very good program, and it is very insightful. And then I think the first paper that was conducted today was done by the global expert. And it is on the tax of nation building, which everybody needs to be on it, because we are all here to govern and we are all here to provide leadership. And then the first assignment for every governor is to have that spirit of the tax of nation building, to be part and parcel of the development of this nation, to be part and parcel of uniting the country and making a very peaceful atmosphere at the center. I think that is the most important thing. And then later on, there was issue of priority, setting goals, performance, measurement, and also how to recruit your team. And that is very essential, because whatever strategic policy you have, you cannot be able to achieve it if you don't have a very good team of experts, despite the fact that you have some political consideration. But if you want to succeed as a governor or for any leadership, you must have people who have the expertise, who have the experience, who have the skills. And then you have to also consider diversity. And you have to consider other options: youth involvement, women involvement, politicians involvement, and what have you in the government. It will only consolidate the gains of the government, and it will make the smooth transition from one government to another. And I think the issue of transition was also discussed at the forum. And at the transition, it means you have to look at so many things. Party affiliation should not be a hindrance to the transition from one government to another. And governors' elect shouldn't waste time on investigating what the other government has done. I think it is better to kickstart the process, draw a line, move on, and provide the leadership that you are supposed to provide in your state.
I'm imagining that yourself being from Director General of SMIDAN, you have a lot of experience in creating wealth. You've seen a lot of how the sufferings of the people of Nigeria. You know where the wealth should be, the small and the medium scale. That is where experts will say that is where the money is. That is where the real economy is. And perhaps you've gleaned a lot from a state like Katsina that suffers a lot in banditry, insecurity problems. Have you been able to identify one thing that will help you as a governor, as soon as you get into office on the 29th of May, to get the bulk of your people out of poverty?
I think fundamentally, when you look at the state in particular, it's a state that has suffered from banditry and insecurity. And I was able to go around all the state, all the 361 wards of the state, despite the insecurity issue, I was able to go. The essence of me visiting those places is to see to myself, discuss with the people, know their problem, because without doing a need assessment on anything, you cannot be able to achieve the goals you have set for yourself. So I think the most important thing in addressing issue of poverty, creating wealth and employment to our teeming youth, because largely most of the issue of criminality that is happening in our society is as a result of youth unemployment or underemployment. What I mean by this is that we have to enhance and develop and cultivate MSMEs, macro, small and medium enterprises in the state, so that they will serve as an engine for providing employment to our teeming youth, for providing source of livelihood to our people, and also reduces the level of poverty. You know that there are so many displaced persons in the state, and part of the thing that we want to do is to see how we can rehabilitate them, return them to our societies. And I told everybody that my first priority is fighting the insecurity, seeing how we can reduce the insecurity, trying to reposition the people back to their societies, integrate the society, use the locals, and then employ the locals in providing security at their localities in line and in relationship, and creating synergy between them and the conventional security apparatus that we have in the state.
So, I mean, one will imagine that there's been a lot of effort from the incumbent Governor Masari, in trying to engage. There was even time that he got arms and ammunition of these guys. He tried to give them amnesty. He tried to but it does look like the northwestern region is still battling. The governors are still wrapping their heads around the real cause of this banditry and insecurity in your region. What have you identified as a major cause?
I think, you know, when you want to deal with security, there is kinetic and non-kinetic approach. And first of all, you don't negotiate with bandits at the point of disadvantage. Always try to negotiate with them at the point of advantage. That let them call for negotiation. You shouldn't be pursuing the negotiation. You should be able to approach them, talk to them. You know, all the things that we have been doing is we have always been proactive. What we want to engage the bandit with, we want to approach them, know where they are, locate them, deal with them.
Have you identified them, their worries? I mean, do you really know what they want?
You know, those things are there because everybody who knows history, he knows how this thing has started. Because it has started because of injustice that is being meted to the planet since time immemorial, from the traditional institution, from the courts, from the police. You know, this has been going on for a very long time, and it has not been addressed by the government. And again, you know, if you go to those villages, those localities, they don't have schools, they don't have hospitals, so they are not benefiting anything from the government. But the situation has gone so bad now. You need to deal with the situation before you start addressing those issues that created that
How would you tackle it? Since, I mean, you see this more like a historical and cultural problem. I mean, there's a grievance between, like you said, with the Fulanis, and this is an age-long crisis. How do you want to tackle it?
You know, the problem is there are a lot of intruders into the situation. This thing is not only perpetuated by those people. There are so many people that are coming in and taking advantage of them.
Aliens, non-Nigerians?
Aliens, non-Nigerians, and even people from Nigeria. And there are even some people who are taking advantage because within those forests there are some illegal mining sites. And as a result of those illegal mining sites, there are some people who are funding the bandit.
Politically?
Yes, politically, so that when they fund them, it will give them opportunity to mine whatever they want to mine and move away. But they have they have terrorized, and they have enclaves as a place where they said, okay, this thing is our own, and they don't allow anybody to come. If you don't collaborate with those bandits, create that situation, that wealth will not be harvested from those
there's
places.
a need to disrupt that system.
There is need to disrupt it and then to come back and address the main cause of the issue.
But these guys are in the forest. Is it not, I mean, how easy it is? Because Governor El-Rufai said one time, flush these people out, bomb them, disrupt them. How easy is that?
You know, it is easy to do that when you use the locals, because those people living near the forest, they know the history of it, they know the location of those people, they know where you can locate them. But the problem is we don't have the energy and the guts by our security agencies to approach those people, because most of them, they lack the knowledge of the terrain, they lack the knowledge, the topography and what have you of the area. So for you to achieve success in the area of security, you must use the locals. The locals, you gather intelligence from them and you use them to lead the battle to the forest.
It's interesting. So if you're getting into office, and I know that your people will be looking up to you to fix the problem, because according to some of the locals, they say Diko is a magician. He will do the magic. And I'm hoping that you will be able to get things done. What will be the first thing that you will attempt in tackling, in ensuring that there is peace again in Katsina?
You know, the most important thing, I have said it over and over during my campaign, and I have made promise to the people of Katsina State, my first priority is security. I will look at the security issue. I have just received a report last week from the security committee. I have sat with the experts who are knowledgeable in security aspect, and they have submitted a report. What we need to do immediately, we are sworn into office, we swing into action and try to see implementation of the recommendation of the security committee.
Let me take you back to, one area that you are being an expert in the area like Funtua, in Kankari, in Bakori, there is maize in abundance. In some areas like Faskari, Kufo, there is yogurt, and there is asbestos in iron ore in Katsina State. These are enormous mineral and agricultural deposits and opportunities in your state. First and foremost, the asbestos, the iron ore, the mineral resources, these could be some, it may not be low-hanging fruit, but the agricultural part of it. I know banditry has affected a lot of farming. What are your immediate plans to generate wealth, to engage people in agriculture and in mineral resources? Are you planning independent Katsina State-owned industries where people can get jobs through these industries where you have your mineral resources?
You know, what we intend to do is, all these plans that we have, we cannot achieve it when we don't have peace in the state.
So security is a major agenda.
We are addressing insecurity, but vis-a-vis working on other areas, because agriculture in Katsina State is one of the most important areas that we have to look into, because 85 to 90% of the population, they depend on agriculture, their source of income, their source of livelihood is agriculture. We are developing an irrigation master plan to ensure that we have 12 months round farming season in Katsina State, because right now what we witness is we only have 3 to 4 months engagement on farmers. They have about 8 months wasting their time, wasting their energy without doing anything. What we intend to do at the moment is to make sure that we promote irrigation, because we have so many irrigation sites that were not utilized. We have so many dams unutilized. We have so many thousands of hectares of irrigation land that are not utilized. And even the smaller irrigation sites that we have in all the local governments, we try to see how we develop it. So right now we are working on the irrigation master plan. We are trying as well as to bring back the extension services workers so that they will be able to teach farmers on the different farming practices, the kind of seeds they should plant, the kind of time to harvest, time to plant, time to, you know,
Mr.
if
Rada,
you have
yeah.
that information readily available to the farmers, the sky will be the limit in the area of production, and there will be a value chain addition in the product processing, and then...
We're totally out of time. We need to run now, just in 10 seconds. What kind of governor do you think the people of Katsina should be expecting in Dikko Rada?
Very humble, simple, and very hardworking, focused, and straightforward.
Dikko Rada, Governor-elect Katsina, say thank you so much indeed for your time tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Governor.
Thank you, and I wish you the very best.
Thank you.
It's just about 14 days to inauguration of some of the governors, and we'll be looking forward to that and how there will be a new beginning in some of the federating units of Nigeria. Well, that's our show for tonight, everyone. And thanks for watching. I'm Seun. I'll see you tomorrow at 7 p.m. God bless Nigeria.